Well, welcome back, everybody. This is Ride the Stream. My name is Michelle. I'm a pop culture scholar, and I am joined with my co-host, Travis.
Hello.
And we are here today to discuss the next episode of Lost. In this case, it is episode 4 called Walkabout, and it originally aired on October 13th, 2004. So I think we've got a lot to unpack with this particular episode. So I think if you're okay with it, Travis, I'll go ahead and jump into the plot synopsis,
Yes,
and
please.
then we'll get to it. Okay, well, it's day 4 for the survivors, and the episode focuses quite a bit of time on the enigmatic character, John Locke. The episode opens with a flashback, this time from Locke's perspective as he wakes up on the beach after the crash. He is on his back, and as Locke looks towards his right foot, he slightly wiggles his toes. This seems like a completely normal reaction, but this is Lost. So we have to suspect that there is more going on than meets the eye. Vincent's continuous barking wakes the survivors. Rustling and grunting noises come from the plane. Jack states, Sawyer, to which Sawyer retorts, right behind you, jackass. Seeking food, boars have invaded the fuselage, where there are still dead passengers. Jack and most of the survivors face the gruesome task of removing essential resources from the plane while leaving behind the corpses. Some of the survivors collect wood since Jack wants to build a huge bonfire at night, which will basically cremate the remains, but also become a signal for help. Claire seeks Jack to lead them in honoring the dead at the bonfire, but he declines. Claire steps up during the bonfire and shares the names and details, often just from an airline ticket or a driver's license of the dead. Other things that occur during the episode, a lack of food is revealed as Hurley tries to take Sawyer's personal stash of peanuts. Saeed steps in to diffuse rising tension by stating the island has lots of food resources. Locke wants to go boar hunting and does a show and tell of his arsenal of knives. Hurley asks, who is this guy? This leads into the second flashback regarding Locke working in an office setting, and he appears to be some sort of data analyst. By the way, I love the reference to Office Space. Gotta love those TPS reports. Locke, Kate, Michael go boar hunting. Michael is bum rushed by a charging boar and becomes injured. Kate and Michael are going to return to camp, but Locke continues the hunt alone, who runs into the mysterious big monster. Kate, who has been trying to set up an antenna on behalf of Saeed, is able to look over the canopy of the forest, and she thinks that the huge mysterious monster has gotten Locke and that he is therefore gone. But somehow Locke returns with a dead boar in tow. But when asked by Michael if he saw the monster, he lies and says that he didn't. Jack and Rose chat. Rose thinks Jack has a kind way about him, but this is in direct opposition to his behavior about the dead people who didn't survive. Jack begins seeing an older man wearing a suit. Who is he? Because he is someone Jack recognizes. Rose gives Jack permission to stop watching over her. This is a promise he made during his flashback. She also believes that her husband is not dead when Jack asks if she wants to say a few words about her husband. Potential foreshadowing includes when Walt asks Sun about a particular plant, she shows him it is to brush one's teeth. She seems to understand him. Hmm. Closing out the episode in two sequential flashbacks, we find out that Locke cannot go on his walkabout because he is actually wheelchair bound and has been for 4 years. And then right into the next flashback is where he's on the beach. We see him seem to defy medicine, and it's a miracle he stands up. Jack calls him to assist him, and without hesitation, Locke walks quickly to Jack. End of episode. Wow, huh?
Well done. Well done.
Oh, thank you. That was
Oh,
a tough one.
I got goosebumps on my arms just listening to that like final bits of it. Like, oh, it's such a well produced episode. Like it's every step along the way seems natural. It seems to flow really well. Um, and not that there have been any in the previous episodes, but um, that reveal, um, I it has to be one of the best reveals that I can think of
Mhm.
regarding television or film. Just because I remember watching it for the first time and just not expecting that's what was going to happen. Um, so,
Especially when
and
he's
I'd love
sitting
to know
on his
your first
back.
impression.
Oh yeah, because episode three seemed to kind of finish up on Locke, and we both talked about how enigmatic his gaze seemed, whether he was, you know, looking at the other survivors or whether he's looking off into the horizon. Now I think, we get a sense that he's actually having a flashback, and so his thoughts are on that. Um, yeah, the cinematography again was well done, especially showing Jack laying on, not Jack, I'm sorry, um, Locke laying on his back, and we get the shot in front of him. So, his foot is way here in the front of the screen, and he's further back,
Yeah,
which is a nice juxtaposition between, focusing on the foot and then focusing to Locke's face and him looking at his toes. And it seems so innocuous to wiggle your toes, make sure, like all parts are here. You're patting yourself down, making sure, okay, I'm alive. Yep, I feel everything. Everything's good, you know, and to go from there. Um, Especially within the first part. I mean, I think he sits up and things like that, but he hasn't started walking, and now we understand, it book bookends really nice to finishing off that scene again. And now realizing that he's defied medicine. It's a religious experience, or or maybe it's something else. We don't know Locke's religious beliefs, although it's alluded to by Saeed when he talks about um, not being comfortable when Jack just wants to basically cremate all the remains. And Saeed brings up, well, what about their beliefs?
yeah,
So I think, we get some of that the religious themes in this episode, and how it juxtaposed with Jack's more scientific um, belief system, I'm going to say. So, yeah, I thought it was an incredible episode. Um, I've liked Terry Quinn. I've hated Terry Quinn, you know, as his character, and other things that I've seen him in. He's been
yeah.
a bad guy and everything like that. So, he's just such a fantastic actor. And the way that he plays Locke is just so well done. We learn essential things about Locke. We also learn things about the island. And as always, at the end of the episode, we're left like, okay, we got some things answered, but boy, I have this long list over here of a lot more things I need to understand. But that
Yeah.
the island, and that kind of fits with in the prior episode with Charlie wondering, where are we, guys? And this just further complicates because how do you explain Locke and him being able to walk? Um,
And I do remember when I watched this for the first time, that scene at the beginning where he's wiggling his toes, and almost immediately after he looks over and sees his shoe. And
mhm,
my thought was, oh, he was on the plane with his shoes on, and he wakes up and his shoes are off. Like I to me that was like, oh, that makes sense. Like
mhm.
you would think, oh, it's weird, my shoes got knocked off me, besides the fact that we just had a plane crash.
Yeah,
Um, so there was no sense of understanding the true nature of his condition as the Walkabout guide had talked about in the flashback. Um, and I'm so just the intro in that scene where we see him trying to get his bearings and figure out what he has to do after the plane crash. So it was good to get his perspective in that sense.
mhm.
Um, and then, and as I'm watching this episode, I'm thinking, man, this is the fourth episode. And like this is, and I know we've talked about it before, the first couple episodes really focused on Jack, Charlie, Kate. Um, and he really has a huge episode. And it's like, wow, they really haven't touched on a lot of characters too deeply to this point. So him getting this episode and this run at getting to explore him and, you know, his wanting some form of connection in his prior life, having the phone calls with Helen and her viewing him as a customer and him just, you could tell like it's sad that you could tell he wants that bond um and wanting to find a greater purpose. He's got a jerk of a boss and um
Was
to
Randy not just a total asshole?
like rifling through his desk and I'm sorry, you went through his HR file?
Yeah,
That
and
seems like an
admitted
HR
it?
issue in itself. Like
Yeah.
uh so it seems like he has to deal with a lot on a day-to-day basis. And this is without knowing at this point that he is wheelchair bound. And
They did a great job hiding that because as I was rewatching the episode, kept trying to look and see if the wheelchair was ever present. Prior to the
yeah,
reveal at the end of almost the end of the episode, and nowhere does it appear um, in any of the shots. So they did a really great job keeping that one, under wraps until he's at the travel agent and he's trying to get on the bus. They're like, no, you can't do this. You can't do this. And it isn't until the guy, steps away to go to the bus that then we see the wheelchair and then we understand um
yeah. Because what was the only
what's
other
been going
time
on.
we saw it? Was it with them piling wood with it? Like,
Yeah,
like,
like in episode 3, I think they had suitcases on it. Then in
right?
this episode, they had a bunch of wood on it.
It
Um,
never connected to me that, oh, and from, I don't know why, but when watching those episodes, it never dawned on me, oh, that might have belonged to someone. I just assumed like it was hey, it's on the plane in case it's needed, and not necessarily that it belonged to anyone. So then having that reveal, yeah, you're right. They disguised that so well. And I'd be curious to know if anyone ever like, oh, I knew all along.
Yeah, yeah. Um, I wanted to bring up the the title of the episode for a moment, because looking at the episodes, I know the next one is called White Hat, I think, or maybe it's White Rabbit. I'm not sure, but the next one. So that got me to thinking about why they named episodes the way they did. And so I did go look at Walkabout because this is not the first time I've heard the term. I'm actually familiar with the term from a 1971 film by Nicholas Roeg, about two siblings, a boy and a girl, that get stranded in the outback after their father, for some reason, starts shooting at them. They go out on a picnic, and then, uh, for whatever reason, I think he's going to kill them, and then he successfully takes his own life. But the daughter, who's older than her brother, was able to get them out of the situation, and hide behind rocks. And the father takes his own life. She goes back to the picnic, pulls food together, without her brother knowing what had happened. And they end up going on a walkabout. And it is an Australian Aboriginal, and I'm going to say Indigenous person, um, ID, ideal. And in the movie, they run into an Indigenous boy who they kind of connect with, and he kind of takes care of them because they are so out of their element. And he helps them. He does hunting. He provides food, shows them how to get water when it's, very difficult, and things like that. And so, um, and as I recall, there was lots of themes about life, death, about civilization versus nature, as well as kind of that loss of innocence. And I felt like that really kind of coincided with conversations that we had last week, as well as what we're kind of seeing this week.
Yeah,
Um, so I thought it was interesting that Locke talks about this trip of his. And I'm going to quote him. He says, "A walkabout is a journey of spiritual renewal where one derives strength from the earth and becomes inseparable from it." Locke believes it is his destiny to do the walkabout, and no one is going to tell him what he can and cannot do. So that kind of, to me, leads in a little bit into what was one of my favorite scenes from the episode. And if you don't mind, I'll go first because this kind of leads
sure.
into mine. But I thought that out on the boar hunt was probably one of my favorite scenes. And that's because Locke's flashback reveals that he believes in his destiny, to go on a walkabout, even though his boss Randy scoffs at him and says he cannot do it. And of course, you're thinking, Randy's so full of crap. Of course, Locke can do it. Um, but even though, present time, Michael is hurt, and Kate tells Locke that they should return to camp, Locke is even more determined to get the boar. And I feel like it's a test or a hurdle to achieving his own destiny, and also completing his own walkabout. But with that, I felt that it also loops back to his whole idea of being inseparable with the earth, and the fact that the island has actually kind of cured him. So I was really left wondering if he'll ever even want to leave the island, because now he can be the person that he feels his destiny is tied to. So I thought that was a really interesting um, insightful scene that gives us answers, but as always, leaves us with more questions.
Yeah.
So I thought that was a powerful one. Um, so what was your favorite scene?
Well, just to piggyback off that scene where he goes wandering off for the boar as Kate's trying to help Michael.
Mhm.
And, she says, like, whether she is talking about saying he can't physically do it, or no, you can't do it because you'll get hurt by the unknown, or no,
Hmm.
you can't do it because you have to help me with Michael. I don't know what her intent was there, but him just walking off, using that phrase, don't tell me what I can't do. I mean, it's such a great line. Um, and it's one of the more determined looks that
Yeah,
you'll see, which goes to your, um, you know, to Terry, the actor's, ability to kind of make this character shine. Um, I, I think the reveal is my favorite, excuse me, my favorite scene. Um, Even after having watched it probably half dozen times by now at this point, because I've watched a couple more times in the past week. Um, it never ceases to amaze me, like the feelings I get watching his reaction to why are my toes wiggling? I
yeah.
can sit up. I can move my knees closer to me to put my shoes on. Um, slowly standing up. And I think for one moment he kind of like rubs his knee to maybe see if he's like, I don't know if he's trying to get feeling back in it, or, from atrophy. I don't know. And then you have Jack, which I believe this happened in the first episode, where Jack calls over to him and we
Hmm.
see Locke run over to him, but then no hesitation just to go help, even though he's just realized he can walk again. I think is kind of a testament to who he is as a person. Um, I think we've seen some characters who they can be downright nasty, and you know, um, whether Sawyer has moments, or his boss Randy. There are some characters who have some very unlikable moments, or they're just downright unlikable, period. Um, and having him thrust himself into being a helper, um, it's just it's really great to see. I maybe I just need a lot of that right now in my own life. Um, but and
Did you feel
then
inspired by him? Because there
yeah,
was this sense of he is rather inspiring. And the fact that, we as the audience can take, I mean, yes, whether it's a miracle or something else going on with the island, the fact is that he's got a second chance to be able to walk. And I mean, I guess that's also part of the thing. He's been given a second chance, like Kate has been given a second chance in the prior episode where it's just kind of a clean slate. So it's almost a continuation of that. But, I felt somewhat empowered to think and reflect in my own life about if he's able to and overcome something and truly believe in his abilities, then my doing X, Y, or Z, I should be able to find strength within my own self. I don't know. What about you?
yeah, I think there is a I know the phrase "Don't tell me what I can't do," but there's the actual going about and doing it. And he goes off to try to get that boar, um, and I'm sure, I know there's the threat of the monster and what might have you. So maybe some might say, is that the best decision to do? But in the grand scheme of things, like we're watching someone who has everything that he's wanted. He's wanted, he wanted to do the walkabout. He now gets to experience something similar with the use of his legs. He gets to provide for people who truly need help. Um, and seeing him in that role, um, and not asking if he can do it, he's just like, this is what we can do. We
Mhm.
can go hunt boar. We'll need 3 people. This is how we can do it. He wants to go and make something happen. Um, and I don't remember how my reaction to his encounter with the monster after the first watch. Like
Mhm.
I don't know if I was like, oh crap, like he's a goner.
Mhm.
I can't say for sure if that's how I felt. Um, but I do think I do remember when he comes through the jungle, he's covered in blood. I was like, oh, thank God. I was like, he's not dead. Okay, good.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, um, and there still is that sense of that. Like I've seen the show so many times, but it's just like, God, it's so rewarding to say, okay, he's still here. That's good.
Yeah.
He hasn't become pilot number 2,
Yeah.
who got ripped out of the plane. Um, so yeah, I think he is inspiring. It definitely helps. Watching it, you can feel motivated, but man, I really need to get off my butt and, you know,
Yeah.
make sure I'm doing what I can, write more, and, make sure I'm exercising more to be around as much as I can. Um, and he, and I know it's a lot to take away from one episode, but he embodies a lot of, you know, that healthy spirit that he kind of talks about with his initial desire to go on the walkabout. So,
Yeah. Yeah. I would agree. I would agree with all of that. Um, I do find it interesting that he didn't tell Michael that he actually saw it. So
yeah,
left wondering, okay, what did you see? Because you definitely saw it. Because we got the perspective of the monster looking down. So there is absolutely no way that he did not see what is out there in the forest. And interestingly, I don't recall, but I think Michael directly asked him, but I don't know that anybody else did. And I'm going to be
no,
watching for that in the next episode, but to see if anybody does. Um, but yeah, I kind of thought, oh crap, we have our first kind of main core person that didn't make it, and then he came through, and it just, at that point, here comes the heroic. Okay, Max, yeah, you're adorable. So that's Max. I don't know what cat number that is in the 8 that'll show up on the episodes through our time discussing Lost. But yeah, I really got, oh, this is the adventure aspect of the show with a lot of fantastical, because we don't know what's going on. Now we know there's something about the island that's impacting him, and it does kind of left me wondering, okay, are others impacted in some way? Medically, maybe, that
yeah,
they're unaware of. His was external and very easy for him to be able to tell that he's been impacted. But, he doesn't go to Jack and say, "Oh, it's a miracle." He just
Yeah.
gets on with it. And I mean, I think that stays true to Locke as a character. That he is
And
not,
would people believe him too?
yeah, yeah, exactly. And I think that would be oversharing because he strikes me like the type of person that just based on kind of flashbacks that, you know, it takes a lot to have him open up. And there's been a lot that has happened to him that we're not privy to. Um, and, subsequent episodes, hopefully we'll see more of that. But yeah, we learn things about him, but we're left wondering um, even more.
Maybe the aspect of not telling Michael is also maybe why he doesn't talk about his injury to anyone, because
Yeah.
maybe people just won't believe whatever it is he saw. And I have to say, I really love the camera work. The vantage point of the monster, we're seeing it through the monster's eyes come
Yep.
through the trees. So great.
Yeah.
I love that sequence because you can see it's like much bigger and taller than Locke.
Oh,
So
yeah. Yeah. Um, well, speaking of that shots, I have to bring up some of the comedic relief um, that came up. We had a few, but I'll focus in on one that I really enjoyed. Shannon and Boone, who continue to knock heads. She's kind of, feeling like food will just kind of drop from the heavens, I guess.
poor
And
Charlie.
Boone tries to explain to her that, your gold card doesn't work here on this island. So she's the next tactic that she has, and she goes and, kind of flirts with Charlie and like, hey, and of course, I think it's funny because Charlie's trying to like, yeah, I'm in a band. I'm a musician. And that's not what she wants at all. She wants to know if he can fish. And he's like, well, I am from an island, so of course, yeah, no problem. To which, then somehow Hurley gets in the mix because probably Charlie doesn't know about fishing. And, one of the scenes is Charlie and Hurley trying to catch a fish for Shannon.
So
Um,
fun to watch them together. Like it in
yeah,
that one scene, you see what great chemistry they have and like
yep.
the budding friendship that's already happening.
Oh, yeah, yeah. And it's just so funny to watch Hurley trying, and then he gets so flustered and frustrated. And you can feel his temperature, his anger rise. And Charlie says, "What? Can I give it a shot?" Hurley, "Oh yeah, sure. Here you go." So even though Hurley may put on a little show of being, frustrated and stuff, it's easily diffused. He's so,
Yeah.
he seems really laid back, and kind of goes with the flow. And then of course Charlie tries it, and I think he is shorter than Hurley. So when
Yeah.
he tries, I mean, he gets completely dunked.
Well,
But
he puts his whole body into it and
oh
dives under
yeah,
the
he
water
did.
with the spear and and Hurley just starts laughing. I'm like, you have to hold it, pin it down. And they just
Yep.
start kind of laughing at each other and
I
Lost does a
love it.
good job at uh, putting in humor. We've talked about it to kind of
Yep.
break the tension. And oh, I felt so bad for Charlie. Like he was just
He
looking
was
for
heartbroken.
some adoration or you know, he sees Shannon kind of asking to go on a walk with him. He's like, "Sure, yeah, let's
Yeah.
love to." And just to know that Boone just says it straight out that she was
Guys.
using you. And
Yep.
oh, the look of defeat, or not defeat, but just demoralized. Uh, I felt so bad for Charlie. He,
Yeah. And I really felt like it was And Hurley even said, well, I'm Santa Monica Pier. Yeah, I've put a fishing pole in the water, and it really gave me that sense of the movie I think it's City Slickers, where
Billy
they're
Crystal.
totally out of their element. And again, it's that concept that Sawyer brings up, you know, you're not you're not in civilization anymore. It is a different animal out there, so to speak. Um, so yeah, I felt bad for Charlie, but I also felt kind of like, well, Shannon's just not getting the point yet. You know?
Yeah. She, yeah. She she has some highs and lows in her personality, where she seems to understand what's going on, and then she seems to go back to whatever old ways helped her get by previously.
Yep.
Boone seems to have maybe the desire to be a leader, but he also seems pretty alert with what's going on, like him understanding that Rose is struggling and that
Yeah.
maybe Jack, the person who saved her life, should be the one to maybe talk to her. Um, so, and we see other moments like, we see Saeed seems very relevant to the camp and trying to find a way off the island. And, you know, when his device gets broken, like he gets clearly frustrated and doesn't like keeping the secrets. Um, and then you have Sawyer who doesn't know how to be nice, but he's trying to give Claire like some personal belongings that he had in his stash, and he's just like, "Here, just take it." Like he
Yeah.
doesn't know. Either
Yeah,
he
I
doesn't
like how
know, or it's been so long he's forgotten how to be
yeah.
like, I guess, civil.
Yeah. That brings up the point of him, of course, bickering with Hurley and uh at the beginning, and then, kind of backing off. And then he's sitting in the one of the two seats from the plane. And how, well, what are we supposed to do about food? Whoop, comes the knife. And the look on his face as he kind of looks at the knife and how close it came to him. And
Yeah.
his little retort, he's got some really good lines where he's like, "Oh, good, and you gave back his knife," you know. And then Locke does his show and tell. I was like, we need those kind of moments because I feel like Jack doesn't get a whole lot of release. And I almost feel like, he doesn't want to go and talk to Rose because he's like, I'm not a psychiatrist. I deal with the body and, cutting and sewing up. I don't deal with the emotions that are going on up here. Um, but he does try. I mean, that's part of being a doctor, though, is a bedside manner. And I think that he does make an effort, to go over there. Um, and I thought it was interesting how she responds, that she releases him from his promise. Um, and she's very verbal, she verbalizes that to him so that he hears it. Just really interesting. Um, so much was concentrated on kind of Locke and the hunt, or alternatively being at the crash site and clearing things out, getting ready for the bonfire. I am kind of curious. Out of the episode, maybe it'll be a surprise to me, maybe it won't, but who's the most interesting character from the episode for you?
Um, it is Locke. Um, I
Mm-hmm.
will say, touching base with the conversation that Jack and Rose had,
Mm-hmm.
um, she's also very interesting. And I remember watching that scene where Jack is saying, "Hey, Um, you can say some words at the memorial, um, and maybe, that will help bring you some closure. And she's just like, my husband's not dead. And he was in the tail plane of the section. They're gone. And her one line is so simple, but she says they're probably thinking the same thing about us. And
Yeah,
that
I like
and
that
that's the
line.
first time I thought about anyone else from the plane that wasn't on that beach. I was like, oh, could there be the tail section? Could they have survived? Like I never thought about it until that line.
Like some
And
other island that, is nearby, but you can't see it from where
yeah,
they're at on the beach because, that was one of the things that made me think about our conversation last week, and that's about passage of time. Um, and the fact that we're obviously discussing episodes on a weekly basis. That's how they were released, is on a weekly basis. And so it feels like a long time between episodes, but it's really so far, this was day 4, this was episode 4, so it's passing for them at time. The bending of time has always been interesting to me. And so for them it's been a day, but for us as viewers it's been a week. So
yeah,
even though we're immersed in their experience and can kind of feel that same sense of loss that they do, they're they're almost like in a different time because of the fact that our passage is going at a different rate than theirs is. So and I would agree, when she made that comment about, well, he's in the tail section, that doesn't mean he's dead. They could
yeah,
just be in a different place, which made me think, and I think it was the first time that I thought about, well, hey, gang, you don't even know the rest of the island. And if you go back to the Tom Hanks movie Castaway, I mean, I think he did some reconnaissance, looked around, went up on, up there on the hills. Can you see the other side of the island? You know, for all we know, they could be in a deserted area of a bigger piece of land that's
yeah.
not frequented by anybody, but nobody knows that they landed there. Wouldn't that be the craziest thing to be? I don't know. Well, I mean, I know it's shot on Hawaii, at least some of it, I think it is. But wouldn't that be hilarious to find yourself, you're actually on Hawaii and
Yeah,
Honolulu's on the other side of the island or something really crazy like that?
yeah.
But yeah, they don't even know, maybe the tail section's on the other side of the island and they wouldn't even be aware. And it's only 4 days in. So they haven't had an opportunity yet to really kind of go and explore. And that then we'd have kind of our survival part of the genre bending that we have with the show. But yeah, I agree with you on that. That was an interesting line by her. And like you, I hadn't thought about it before.
Um, I guess to go back to Locke as being the most interesting character,
Hmm.
um, I also love the scene at the end after it's revealed that he can walk after being wheelchair bound. He has this, everyone's at the bonfire or the memorial service. Sorry.
Hmm.
It's a memorial service, not I know they're using it as a bonfire, but
Yeah.
where I do appreciate that Michael tells him, hey, good job on killing the boar. I know he's had some dislike of Locke for hanging around Walt, but what I like, um, is just he's standing there, you see the fire, and he just kind of glances over slightly to the left to look at the wheelchair with the flames
Hmm.
behind it, and he just gets this smile on his face. Um, and I can just imagine how good it feels for him to have this second chance at uh, a different life. So I do love that moment. Um, and I think it just kind of makes me feel good about Locke getting this second chance. So,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, he was also, I thought, the most interesting character, and because they did spend so much time on him, and he's such a complex character, and yet he so much is revealed about him, and it's so drastic. Like we can kind of see that there's elements of Kate, because she's one of a kind. She's the kind-hearted thief, maybe. Um, but with Locke, he's a survivalist, and yet he's wheelchair bound, and his life is so drastically changed by the island, that it does make me wonder, you know, it not only gave us insight into him, but it also gave us insight into the island, which I think is kind of like one of the first times that we really get more knowledge about the island, through his eyes. So, yeah, for me, it was Locke.
and I think the creators of the show have done a good job at, well, telling us that these people are capable. Well, how is John capable? How does he know all this stuff? Why does he have all those knives? Like,
Mhm.
how does he know how to throw a knife with accuracy? How does Kate seemingly know how to handle herself? You know, Saeed was in the Republican Guard, so,
Mhm.
that's a clear understanding of why he's skilled at communications with weapons. But with other characters, it's like, well, what do we still have to learn? Like,
Mhm.
where down the rabbit hole are we going to figure out what made them this way, made them capable of, you know, Kate, oh, I've climbed worse trees than this. Really? Like, I, like I wouldn't have been able to pull myself up to the first level. So, and it's just it's really interesting. And can't I can't wait again as we're going through the however many episodes Lost has. Um, Getting your perspective is so fun. And I love your synopsis.
Oh,
It was
thank you.
great. And I love that you added the Jack assuming that Sawyer's in the plane and he's just like, right here, jackass. It's such a great moment. It starts the episode off so well. It's so yeah,
Yeah,
I don't know if there's anything else. Like I feel like the creators are maxing out the writing, the cast
yeah,
is maxing out their chemistry um and this episode is just it's just one of my favorites.
yeah, yeah. Same here. Just really loved it. I thought it was a good blend. But I also feel like they're making a point to kind of like right now at least kind of concentrate on a few of the characters and kind of letting that lead the narrative, even though you've got other narratives that are intertwining, so that you feel like the story of their survival is still kind of getting fleshed out, even while the creators are spending time on these individual characters. So you become more invested in them. And I continue to think how brilliant the writing is. And man, I'd love to see the show's Bible, to see how they put this
Yeah.
all together, because it's just phenomenal. Absolutely. It's magic. It really is. All the elements came together.
Yeah, I'd love to look into that to see if there actually is anything, if people have ever taken any pictures of it, or if anyone kept it after the show was done, or
Yeah,
what have you. Um, yeah, I think this episode also, besides being great, again, it just highlights on one character, but we get plenty of bits from other characters to keep pushing us along. So
yep, yep. Need more Sawyer though. He is quite the character. And I do like
yeah,
when
I'm
he
waiting for
shows up
his
on the screen.
yeah, I'm waiting for his I'm waiting for his episode to pop up because
Yeah.
yeah.
Oh yeah, that'll be a fun one. But with that said, just as a reminder, we do want to converse with you. So definitely comments, but be a little cognizant of the fact that I've only watched basically the first season, so try not to spoil us beyond the first season. Um, Otherwise, Travis will have to probably mediate the comments. We don't want to keep you from talking, but maybe indicate you have a spoiler in there, so that way I will not like
Yeah.
doubt something that I don't want to find out yet. But we definitely love to hear your thoughts on what you think of this episode. What was your favorite scene? What was your favorite character? Um, and are you watching it for the very first time like me? Or are you Travis and you're a veteran watcher of Lost and maybe rewatching it along with us? So I think with that, Travis, definitely, subscribe if you haven't. Click the notification bell, obviously. We've invited you to leave some comments down below. And definitely come back to us next week when we talk about episode 5.
Cannot wait.
Me neither.